Captain Billy Murdoch, on a pair, joined Harry Boyle in the middle.
But then, disaster! Boyle was run out. He had made just 3.
Australia was still 258 runs behind and had already lost their openers. Worse was to come when Tom Groob was out first ball, caught by Shaw off the bowling of Morley. It was Morley's 1050th first-class wicket. Australia were 3 wickets down and 257 runs adrift. The match looked over and spectators prepared to catch their trains home. Billy Murdoch and Percy MacDonald steadied the ship and took the score to 97. Lord Harris replaced Morley and Shaw in the England bowling attack with Billy Barnes and W.G. Grace. Barnes was then taken off in favour of Alan Steele, who Murdoch hit for 2 4s in his second over. MacDonald had hit consecutive 4s and had made 43 when W.G. Grace made a successful LBW appeal. Murdoch guided Australia past their 100, but then Jim Slight attempted a slog to get off the mark to W.G. Grace. Lord Harris caught the catch at long off. Slight was out for a golden duck, and Australia were 170 runs behind and 5 wickets down. An innings defeat looked inevitable. Australia's wicket-keeper Jack Blackham joined Murdoch and initially concentrated on survival, but both he and Murdoch managed to score 4s off Alfred Shaw, and Blackham seemed to have found his touch when he presented an easy catch to E.M. Grace at point off the bowling of Morley. He had scored 19 and Australia were 143 for 6. George Bonner put up some resistance and helped take Australia to close of play. They were 170 for 6, still 101 runs from avoiding the innings defeat, but Billy Murdoch was playing a captain's innings and was now 79 not out.
Back in the pavilion, Billy Murdoch made a wager of 1 sovereign with the man who would become his great friend W.G. Grace, that he'd pass W.G.'s score of 152. W.G. gladly accepted the bet, as Murdoch was now running out of partners. The public sensed this too, and a far smaller crowd appeared the next morning, believing the match to be almost over. This was emphasised further when Alan Steele broke George Bonner's defence, bowling him for 16. 6 runs later, Steele caught and bowled Joey Palmer. Australia had only made 17 more runs and were down to their last 2 wickets. Once again, the prospect of an innings defeat loomed. The Australian captain was joined by team manager George Alexander at the crease. Alexander initially concentrated on defence, while Murdoch continued to bat with fluency. Alexander then started to attack the bowling of Alan Steele, bringing Australia to 200 at 10 minutes to midday. Steele was replaced by W.G. Grace, and Murdoch crept towards his century. Then, on 99, he was hit amidships by a ball from Morley. Play was stopped for several minutes as the medics were called upon, but Murdoch stepped delicately back to resume his innings. Finally, at 12:30, he scored the single to reach his century, to the cheers of the small crowd. George Alexander then hit Grace for 3 and Morley for 4, but Morley was not to be denied. He had Alexander caught at slip by Alfred Shaw. Alexander had scored 33 of a 52-run stand. This took Australia to 239 and was all the more impressive considering Alexander's lack of match practice. Morley now had 8 wickets in the match. Australia were still 32 runs from avoiding an innings defeat and down to their last wicket. Last man in was William Moole. Moole's cricketing career was a short one. He would later become a judge and a politician. He made an unconvincing start to his innings, missing several balls, but Murdoch hit W.G. for 4. Australia reached 250 and Alan Steele was recalled to the England attack. However, Moole snicked him for 4. Murdoch then hit 3 off Morley and Australia were close to making England bat again. Another single by Murdoch off Steele was followed by an off drive for 4 by Moole. A single by Murdoch guided Australia past the 271 runs required to ensure England would bat again, to the obvious pleasure of all those watching. The Australian last wicket stand was not finished there. Murdoch drove Shaw for 4 and Moole took 7 off an over. England brought Fred Morley back into the attack, but while he and Shaw stemmed the flow of runs, there was still no wicket. Replacing them with WG and Lucas did no good, as both Murdoch and Moole found scoring shots against the England bowlers. Australia passed 300 runs. On came Frank Penn to replace WG. At the other end, Murdoch caught Lucas for 3. This brought him to 152, equal to WG's first innings score. A maiden followed, then an interval. Billy Murdoch's wager with WG Grace was still intact. At 10-3, the players returned. William Moole drove Alan Steele for 2. Billy Murdoch then scored a single off Billy Barnes to take him to 153 not out. 1 run past WG. Murdoch had won his wager and accepted WG's hearty congratulations, along with the sovereign that he would wear on a watch chain for the rest of his life. But almost instantly, the Australian innings was over. Barnes produced a quick delivery to remove Moole. Australia were all out for 327. Murdoch's rearguard had seen him face a mammoth 358 deliveries and score 17 fours.